What's up? Welcome to another episode of Saigon Rants. In today's episode, I want to talk about how I got started coding, how I learned to code, and my motivations for it, and hopefully give you an idea on where to get started and if this is something that you want to do. Alright, so let's go back to 1993. I was in grade school. Our computer lab had Macs, and they had a program called Hyper Studio. Now this program was really magical to me because one of the things that the main thing this program can do is one, lets you make pages, but not only let you make pages, it also let you link pages together. So you can it was pretty much like a website experience. Say you make one page and then you add a link on an image or a button or whatever, or a piece of text, and then when the user clicks on that link, it'll take them to whatever other page you created in the page maker. And so this was like an experience, it was experience making and experience sharing it. So fast forward a few years later to say around 1998, I did a search for an HTML tutorial, and one came out for WebMonkey. And so I went through this tutorial maybe 20, 30 times. Just kept rewriting it, rewriting it, and then doing it from memory. And then later on, I learned how to do tables to organize my content. And back then, everything was more simpler. And then afterwards, I learned about CSS. But I gotta say, when I first started learning CSS, it was kind of tricky. The syntax was really strange to me. It took me a while to get the hang of it. And some of my inspirations at that time, I had a friend in high school. His name was Tenzin. He was this guy from Tibet. He was all about helping Tibetans get more technology in their lives. So he used to do mashups of websites. He would find some really cool stuff and mash it up. And then the stuff that he was building was like super crazy. It was just blowing my mind because I never seen anything like it. So what I would do is I would take it apart and then rebuild it, to figure out how it was coded. And so that took my web design to the next level. And then that's one of the reasons why I started learning CSS, because I saw CSS as a way to take my HTML pages to another level. And that's what this whole coding thing's about, especially for web design. Always about taking your skills to the next level so you can build something that's next gen, something that's gonna deliver an experience to the end users. My next inspiration was when I did an internship during high school. I did an internship at a newspaper in Harlem, New York. It was an e-publication, so they would have stories around Harlem about different current events. And so since it was all online, they had a big web team. And so on the web team, there was two developers who were designers also. One guy's name was Shem, and the other guy's name was Justin. And they were really amazing at Photoshop. And they used their Photoshop skills to create even more cooler web experiences, more cooler looking web pages. And so that was an inspiration for me, it made me want to take learning Photoshop more seriously and take my Photoshop skills to the next level. And also, my HTML, CSS skills, take those to the next level also. So I incorporated, the learnings from there, and I looked at their Photoshop files, took it apart. I looked at the websites, the web pages that they built, took it apart. Learned so many new things. And at that time, I picked up a book on Photoshop. It was version 5.5. So this was I think it was either 5 or 5.5 that first introduced layers. That's pretty much how I got started. There was little things here and there like system administration, learning Linux. What else? Learning backend languages like CGI, Perl, PHP, and then having to learn database like MySQL in order to be able to handle websites with a lot of users. So the journey continues after that with I worked at a company. It was a dating company in California, in Palo Alto, California. And so this company had a network of dating sites. Often they had a lot of different JavaScript tasks that needed to be done. And so there was I had like a JavaScript mentor. His name was Dean, and we would call him Dean the Machine because when he sits down, oh man, he gets so much work done. It was like a machine. It was really like the most coolest guy, the most chillest guy ever. His skills with JavaScript were so good. And so pretty much, when I got started with JavaScript, it was hard to kind of like get a grasp for JavaScript because it's kind of a strange language. I mean, it's a scripting language, but like some of the ways of doing things is kind of strange. When I learned JavaScript, this was before jQuery. There was no jQuery to help give you like higher level abstractions away from like core JavaScript. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got the JavaScript really cemented in my head. Because I knew some JavaScript before, but it wasn't as solid until after I got, mentoring by Dean, the machine. So that's another thing that I want to kind of emphasize. It's like throughout my career, I've had mentors, and I have people who were inspirational, who are real people, on my journey. So that's how I learned, and that's how I grew and learned more. That's how I got better that's how I learned how to code even better. And I guess the reason why I learned how to code was just from a passion of creating really cool user experiences. They all started back with Hyper Studio back on the Mac. Now I want to talk about if you're starting, what you should learn. And if you want to get into web development, pretty much the same thing I learned: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. These are like the top overall general skills that you would need to know to build any website, at least on the front end. But JavaScript is very versatile, so nowadays a lot of websites backends run off of JavaScript using technology called Node.js. So JavaScript is very powerful, and it's definitely here to stay. So yeah, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, these are the three core things I would recommend any starting web developer to learn. So nowadays everything's more easier. You want to get into HTML, CSS, like a whole web development ecosystem, because there's a lot of frameworks now that abstract the core stuff from you. Now with these frameworks, they reduce the time for learning. You don't have to learn as much detail, and you don't have to have as much experience with, say, CSS. You can just pick up a framework, start copy pasting the examples, and then you can build up a whole web page in like, say, roughly 15-20 minutes. So how long would it take you to learn? I mean, when I got started, HTML took me less than a week to learn. CSS had like maybe about a learning curve, so maybe like a month to really get used to it. And then JavaScript had a longer learning curve. JavaScript took me at least 1 to 2 years. And that's only because when I started learning JavaScript, I didn't have a mentor, and there weren't as many resources as there were now. So nowadays everything's easier. So I don't know, maybe someone who has like, say, basic computer programming fundamentals, just like super basic, you try to pick up JavaScript, maybe it would take you about 6 months, I would say, just to get comfortable with it. But HTML, CSS is not too long, but you can learn it fast, but to really get good at it, that takes time. Nowadays, a lot of people say about 6 months just to get proficient to a level where you can start work as a junior entry developer. So mileage would vary. So yeah, that's how I learned how to code. And these are some ways that you can go about learning how to code. And these are some estimates on how long it would take an average person to pick up coding nowadays. Because nowadays it's a lot more easier than it used to be. And so yeah, I hope you got some good insights from that. Why do you want to learn how to code? That's what I want to find out. Let me know in the comments why do you want to learn how to code? Is it because you have like a personal interest? Is it in terms of like this is like a passion of yours, something that you've always been curious about, or do you just want to make money? And if you just want to make money, there's nothing wrong with that, you know, because this is a field that is always in demand. You know, I have a joke with my friend that goes, you know, website work is never done, and that's so true, because, you know, just building even one website, there's so many bits and pieces and so many things to do that need to be done for just even one website. As long as there's internet, as long as, you know, there's e-commerce sites, the world's always going to need websites and website developers. There's no way around it. So yeah, that's it for today's rant, and until next time, peace.